Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear friends. Allah bless you all. Okay, let's continue our look at Surah Ibrahim. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تفرحه وتسعده وترضيه واجزه بها عنا ما هو أهله يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا وأكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآثرنا ولا تؤثر علينا وأرضنا وارض عنا يا كريم. So, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allah blesses us once again with this opportunity to look at His book and understand some of its more nuanced details. So last time we concluded our look last time at the people of the hellfire, where the followers approach those who they followed. They approach those who led them, those who misguided them, and they wanted some sort of justice. So they said, are you going to, take some of our punishment? And they said, no one can do anything for you here. And Allah's punishment is just like whatever came to them rightfully. And so with this whole scenario going on, there's clearly a lot of animosity, a lot of anger, a lot of feelings of betrayal. And the reason why this is mentioned is to get the listener, especially a disbeliever, someone who thinks I'm okay, I believe in, I'm okay with evolution, or I'm okay with, atheism, not having understood it, just, following someone else, someone who just uses it as an excuse, or someone who's following a party who are wrong. And if they were to look at the truth, they would know that, for example, Sayyidina Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this man truly was a messenger from God. Look how he was around the people closest to him. Look how he was, throughout his entire life. The very definition of integrity, loyalty, honesty, generosity, all the positive qualities you can think of in a person, qualities that make a person stand out just for having one of them. He had all of them to the degree that no one else did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's clear. So it makes someone like this, a disbeliever, think, well, do I really want to put myself in this situation? Is it really fair on me? He should be asking. Do I really want to do this to myself? Because the punishment is severe and it's a long time to deal with, right? And then even more so, it applies to Iblis, the devil. So that's why Allah mentioned the devil's speech, because they go up to him as well, because he's the one who led everyone astray. So Allah says, وقال الشيطان لما قضي الأمر إن الله وعدكم وعد الحق ووعدتكم فأخلفتكم. And Satan will say to his followers, everyone in the hellfire, right? After the judgment has been passed, indeed Allah has made you a true promise, and I too made you a promise, but I failed you. No, that's not the best translation. We're going to amend that. I broke my promise. That's really what he's saying. وما كان لي عليكم من سلطان إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي. And I did not have any authority over you. I only called you and you responded to me. So with that translation, it makes it seem like I did my best. Iblis is saying that he did his best to get. No, he's saying you are idiots. He's saying you did this to yourselves. You did this to yourselves. That's what he's saying. Allah made you a true promise, sent messengers with miracles and guidance and revelation. He spoke to your mind, He spoke to your heart, He spoke to your soul. You knew it to be true, yet you turned away because your ulterior motives were more dear to you, right? Instead of obeying your Creator, you thought, well, I don't owe Him anything. Well, you do. because he created you. Everything you have, every gift that you have, every breath you've drawn has come from him. Imagine your ability to breathe just stops. Your diaphragm stops functioning, right? What are you going to do? Allah. So the devil says to them that it's your fault. Allah made a promise, he fulfilled that promise. And I made the promise, I broke it. That's what he's saying. And we'll look at this more. Let's look at the rest of the verse. And then he says, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Imagine how hard this is going to hit them. So do not blame me, blame yourselves. And at that point, they're going to realize, yes, we were the fools. We were the ones who did this to ourselves. ما أنا بمصرخكم وما أنتم بمصرخية. In another قراءة بمصرخيي. Indeed, I cannot save you, nor can you save me. Indeed, I denounce your previous association with Allah, of me with Allah in loyalty. Surely the wrongdoers will suffer a painful punishment. Wow, just look at this. Okay, first things first. So, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ. Once everything has happened, لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. All the judgment has been made. People of paradise are in paradise, enjoying their delight, celebrating, showing thanks to God, and the people of the hellfire are in there, getting punished, and the punishment is intense, and they're regretting it, and they're allowed some capability of seeing each other. So they went to their leaders. You did this to us, you deal with it now. You take some of our punishment. And when they realize, well, we can't, and then the realizations go back further, and it goes to the devil. He's the one that's led us all astray. Now, this really is something of, something to think about. Especially people, like who, so the devil is, you can see it in two ways. Either he acts directly. So there are people literally who worship the devil, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him. They worship him. And, people who are in contact with him, it may not be the case that he speaks to everyone, but his influence, him and his minions reaches, to in every human being, except those who Allah protects. So either he deals with them directly or through means. And sometimes, he may even convince them that he doesn't exist, which is even easier for him, because then he can just, put ideas in them and make them think, well, they're their ideas, and so they'll pursue them with even more fervor and passion. So the devil is real. And when he gets up there and he says this to them, it's a big, he's literally spitting in their face. Well, not literally, but he's spitting in their faces. That, you have to remember that the point of the devil, of his plan, his purpose, everything, he hates human beings. He felt he was superior to our forefather, Sayyidina Adam, and it turned out he wasn't. So he hates him. Imam Shafi'i said, every enmity, you can hope to end it. Someone is an enemy with you because, of some, there's some misunderstanding, there was a fight, deaths, caused by one side over the other. Any type of enmity in humanity can be ended, except for enmity that comes from jealousy. When one party sees the other party as they've got something I don't have, they deserve to lose it, right? Or they've got something that they don't deserve to have, and then they work to try and get them to lose it. This is Iblis's problem and those who follow his way. A'udhu billah. So, this is what he says, that, Allah made you a promise. So, the root word shaitan from shatana, to be far. So, he's far, distant, remote from anything that's good. You cannot expect any good from him. It can also be used to refer to any rebellious being, especially of the jinn, but anything, even like a wild animal or a recalcitrant animal, or even like a rebellious person, right? And we know that there are shayateen, devils of humanity. So the word is quite broad, but when it's used as shaitan with a definite, it's referring to Iblis. And then لما قضي الأمر, when the matter is done now, there's nothing that can be decided. After this, nothing can be changed. Allah's ruling cannot be overturned. What they have realized is, we're here and we're going to stick to, we can't get away from this. So they're wanting to lay the blame on someone to vent their anger and frustration. And people like this generally are, they're not quite keen to have some introspection. But this is their time. They'll have, eternity for introspection. But at this point, they're still eager to blame others. Yes, others are to blame, but they were also willing participants. So they're having to suffer the consequences of their own willing participation. But right now, they want to vent it and get it off their chest, so they go to Iblis. And Iblis, what does he do? Iblis throws it back on them. And he says, yes, he says, yes, I'm here with you, but it's all your own fault. Remember, Iblis cannot, the devil doesn't have the ability to force anyone. He cannot compel you to do something. What he does is he lures you, entices you. And sometimes, let's say someone is angry at another person, and he'll make their thoughts, he'll direct their thoughts in a direction that makes them angrier and angrier, and he pushes the buttons that makes this person think, you know what, I'm so angry, he's upset me so much, he's offended me so much, I will never forgive him. And then that's how people who are close to each other, drift apart. Or they've done this, and it's I'm gonna get revenge. Or he influences you. He doesn't make your decisions. He doesn't, you choose. Now, it's, if someone just doesn't try working on themselves to refine themselves, then their natural human weakness is going to come through, and they're going to become victims of that weakness, right? They're going to end up doing things and saying things that they regret. And like, if someone does get a feeling of jealousy, like, oh, so and so's got this, I want it, you go and ask Allah. And it only becomes a problem when they start acting on it to try and prevent that person from enjoying their blessing. But even beforehand, you turn to Allah, you make a tawbah, oh Allah, remove this from me. But what he'll do, he'll know people's weaknesses, and he'll push those buttons to make them act in a particular way. So he does deflect the blame, but it's their own fault as well. Shaitan just manipulated them and they fell for it. It's not as if they were there blind. They were adults. They had other people trying to do this to them in their life, and they should have learned the lessons, and they had guidance. So this is what we want. No, Shaitan is your enemy. The devil wants to see every single individual of the human race suffer like he's going to suffer. He knows he's too arrogant. He's put himself in a situation he can't get out of. Had he been willing to change, he could have got out of it, but he didn't. So he was condemned, and that's not going to change now. And this is the key point. He hates you. Don't listen to him. Don't be on his side against yourself. So he says to Rabbi, in Allah wa'adakum. He's saying Allah promised you something. Wa'ad al-haq, a completely true promise. Allah sent them prophets with reminders, a promise of forgiveness, a promise of us receiving Allah's generosity, paradise, unimaginable rewards, everything right. He said, indeed, Allah uses the supreme name. You should have listened to His promise. I mean, just think about this whole thing about, devil worshippers as well. You recognize God exists, and you recognize the devil exists, and you've fallen for the devil's, propaganda. You've fallen for his manipulation to the point that it makes you have a bad opinion of God, the Creator, the one who gives you everything, all the blessings that you have. A'udhu billah, and then someone like this actually thinks, yeah, you know what, will be okay on the devil's side. God knows what He promises these people, but it's all lies and fabrications. And the side that has the truth and the miracles and everything, and yeah, they just turn away. So guess what? Guess who's to blame, right? And He says, وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, and he promised them and he broke it. So the wa'ad, and the fulfillment of a promise, is something always seen as something good, but breaking it unnecessarily without genuine excuse is wrong. So this is known as a khulf or khilaf, or you can say ikhlaf al-wa'ad. So akhlaftukum, and he broke that promise. So what did he do? He betrayed them, he lied, didn't fulfill his promise, he deluded them. And so you know that every single thing he promises is false. Don't go doing what he tells you to do. Don't turn away from the good that you can do. This being wants your destruction. It may not be the case that you see him in front of you, but a lot of it is a case of him giving people a bad opinion of God, a negative understanding of God's messengers, of God's revelation. There are people out there who say the worst things about the Quran, people who try to burn it. They don't understand it. They don't understand it on its own terms, and they're not interested. Like, you could explain it to them, and they just don't care, because they've made their minds up, because the devil has manipulated these people into thinking that whatever they have is great and everything else is wrong. So the guidance that's come to help them, it's come to help them save themselves from their own poor choices. That guidance to them is like, I don't want to know this. So they reject it. That is the worst thing. That's the worst thing about it. He makes them turn away from what's intrinsically good for them. So that's what he says, that فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, that I broke my promise, he said. Not that, he didn't have a choice about it, or he tried his best. No, it was his deliberate plan. And then so he says, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Before we get to this, he says, so don't blame me. Imagine them when they stood there, and this goes into their minds. I said, don't blame me, the one who misled them. He says, don't you put that blame on me, blame yourselves. You are the ones who turned away. You are the ones who committed these sins. You are the ones who disobeyed God. You are the ones who chose, that was perishing and temporary over something that was perfect and permanent, over the hellfire. So, what can you say? Honestly, it's going to be the most remorseful moment of any beings, in this life and the next, right? And, like all the Mufassirun, they're saying that, Shaitan, as Allah says it next, tells us what Iblis says, that he can't do anything. It's down to a person's choices. Make better choices. And if you slip up, turn back to God. Make a tawbah. If you mess up, make a tawbah. Turn back to God. But make consistently good and beneficial choices. And a'udhu billah. And you can see the people that don't do this, that their lives just plummet. The good qualities they could have had, just lost. And then it just becomes this cycle. And then eventually Iblis makes them, blame Allah, blame God, and all of these problems creep in because they listen to him. So take the revelation and listen to the revelation. And so he says, sorry, this is before the blame. He said, وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُم مِّن سُلْطَانٍ. I had no influence, no power over, no ability to actually make them do something. He can't. Like someone behind you with a gun has the threat of force. But Iblis, the devil, can't do any of that, because all that happens, it happens by the will of Allah. He cannot force you into anything. So what a sad and shameful, situation, right? That shameful that they turned away from clear guidance from their Lord, and sad that the person who made them do that is a complete liar. And most of them end up taking on his qualities. So they should realize. So the only way around it is to ask Allah for safety and protection. So So he says, فَاسْتَجَبْتُمُونِي. You wholeheartedly, fully, with all of your beings, responded to him. Right? When Iblis called them and tried to manipulate them, they didn't think, oh, maybe we should think twice, maybe we should consider this, let's consult, like look what the revelations say. No, they obeyed him, they ran after him willingly, deliberately, and that's where the problem was, and that's why they deserve this punishment as well as he does, because they willingly chose to disobey God. They willingly chose to believe the devil. So then he says, "Falumu anfusakum." Imagine how hard this must hit. It must make their punishment worse. Imagine someone ends up in a messy situation because of their enemy, and the enemy makes them realize, yes, you know what, you might be blaming me, but you're the one who's actually to blame. Think about it. You made those choices. No one told you to do that. You did it to yourself. What a horrendous feeling this must be, where the person just has to sit with the fact that they damaged their own life and damaged their afterlife. Has far-reaching consequences. They did it themselves because their enemy duped them into it, and then they willingly went ahead and made the choices. A'udhu billah. So the physical pain, the emotional pain, how are they going to deal with it? Right? And then he says, وَمَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ. So musrikh, from the word sarikh is a helper. And so the root word surakh means to call out, to shout out for help, help, at the top of your voice. So a sarikh is someone who's coming, who's being called. Fa'il bima'na maf'ul, or someone who's calling out, but the one who's coming to help because he's been called. So he's saying, I am not your helper. I cannot help you. And he's saying that's not just because it's him, it's because of the nature of the akhirah, and they cannot help him. So well done to these people for ruining themselves and aligning them with someone who's going to ruin them. And yes, it's a sarcastic well done, but the point here is, look at what he's like. إِذْ تَبَرَّأَ الَّذِينَ اتُّبِعُوا مِنَ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوا. We see on the Day of Judgment, Allah says, those who are followed, when they disassociate themselves from the ones who followed them. We don't have anything to do with you. That's what they'll say. We're not going to, suffer any of your punishment. For you did this to yourselves. That's what's going to happen. So Allah is telling us this, so it makes a person think, who am I choosing? Are you going to choose God and His messengers who spoke the truth? Or are you going to someone who's known and proven to be a petty, vile, jealous, treacherous liar? Iblis. And it's presented in this way so people can sift through it, good and bad, truth and falsehood. But apply it to your lives now. This ideology, this understanding, this whatever it may be, the thing that keeps you distant from God, accepting the truth that is revealed, whatever that may be, why? Ask yourselves that. Yeah. And then so he says to them that he's disbelieved in inni kafartu bima ashraktumuni min qabl inna adh-dhalimina lahum adhabun alim. That he said, I have disbelieved in all that you made me a partner in. So they said, they worship God. Alam aqul lakum ya bani Adam alla ta'budu shaitan. Allah said to humanity, don't worship the devil. Worshipping the devil can mean, obeying him, doing what he commands, and that's what people do. Anything that's good, that's moral, they turn away from it, they vilify it. This isn't right. How can you people do this? And that's what they do. Any command from God, they reject it because it doesn't suit their egotistical desires. So he said that he's rejected the ishraq, them associating him as a deity with God, he's rejected that, meaning he's saying he didn't believe in it. He's rejecting it. So he's basically leaving them in the lurch. After manipulating them in this situation, and they've turned away from God and started worshipping him, he runs away. He runs away. A'udhu billah. Honestly, Allah protect us. This being is just, the pinnacle of immorality, falsity, lies, deception, And then it says, "Inna dhalimina lahum adhabun alim." So this could be the words of Iblis, and that's the strongest, or it could be a comment, a parting comment on the topic from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Shirk, kufr, disbelief, and idolatry, these sorts of things, are known as dhulm because it's a case of worship someone who doesn't need to be worshipped and not worship the one who deserves to be worshipped, right? So it's all classed as dhulm. So he said, "Inna dhalimina lahum adhabun alim." Indeed, the wrongdoers, they have a truly painful punishment. That's what they bring onto themselves. So, these people worship someone else besides Allah, deified him, that's dhulm. So, truly the dhalimeen, they have a very, very, very painful punishment unless they change. Otherwise, they're in for this punishment. That's our perspective. If you see as Allah as the one commenting on this, but if you see as Iblis saying it, he's saying you did dhulm by saying Iblis deserves worship as well besides Allah, and he disassociates himself from that, and he says you're foolish to do that, and then he says I've disbelieved in that. It's all your own fault, suffer the consequences. So once again, it's more of Iblis's blame deflection. And yes, he is to blame, but they are also to blame. So he deflects it off him, making himself out to be the good guy. But he's the one, who got them into this mess, but they chose it. And the way he talks is talking as if, I can't help you, as if there is a way for him to be able to help them. He says, it's not like, I can't help you, my hands are tied. No, you're already there to get punished. You can't be the good guy here. A'udhu billah. Okay, so then Allah, بِضِدِّهَا تَتَمَيَّزُ الْأَشْيَاء. Allah, things become clear through the opposites. So he said, وَأُدْخِلَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها بإذن ربهم تحيتهم فيها سلام. Those who believe and do good will be admitted into the gardens under which rivers flow, to stay there forever by the will of their Lord, where they will be greeted with peace. So these people who obeyed their Lord and amanu wa amilu salihati, right? They did their part, they believed and they did their good deeds. What happens? They'll be entered into the garden actually by Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has the authority to do that. But Allah sends the angels, so they're the intermediary. So you could say it's the angels, or you can look at the actual cause, ultimate cause, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He's the one that enters them into the gardens. And when they go there, they're just going to be amazed. This place that gets more and more beautiful, more and more special as time goes by. And so they're going to be in paradise as opposed to the people of hell. The angels in this life who would inspire them with to do good, those angels come and congratulate them in getting to paradise. The opposite of the devils that came and the devilish leaders that manipulated people and got them to do bad deeds to turn away from God. The opposite's here, right? We also see that Iblis has made his speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although nothing can oppose him, so it's not a case of Iblis is opposite of God. No, Allah is the master of everyone. But Iblis made this speech, and Allah will speak to the believers, right? And here the angels come and they congratulate them, when the disbelievers there are there, blaming each other, right? Just look how it's gonna go. And then rivers, gardens within beneath which rivers flow. We explained that where the greenery is so high and beautiful, that the ground will be covered from anyone looking from above, and the rivers flow under that. And khalidina fiha, they're there forever, which we'll talk about in a second. Bi-idhni rabbihim, with the permission of their loving Lord. They want to go in there forever, and their Lord allows them it. What a gift. And tahiyyatuhum fiha salam, and their greeting in there is salam, is a greeting that talks is extended to them. It's a greeting. A tahiyya is a type of greeting used to honor people and address them and honor them, and salam indicates that they'll be safe, secure, protected from any sort of harm coming to them, from losing anything of the good. And then, so this verse where he says udkhila, passively show ease and facilitation. They'll die, the day of judgment is easy for them, the resurrection is easy for them, the wait is easy for them, the judgment is easy for them. Allah facilitates it all for them. And so the word khulud, from khalida, it does mean for a long time. And the actual duration isn't specified. I mean, it could be 50 years, it could be 500 years. But in the Quranic usage, it means labithina fiha ahqaba, they'll be in the hellfire for many ages. So paradise and hell, they'll be there khulud, a long time, but it never ends. And we get this from the word abad. The abadiyya is absolute permanence. So it's not a case of they'll be there for a particular time and the punishment will end or the punishment will change. No, the punishment, وَلَن نَزِيدَكُمْ إِلَّا عَذَابًا, and we will only increase you in torment. And the punishment will not get easier, will not get sweeter for them or anything like that. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. That's all they get because of their choices. And yeah. Okay. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after telling all of this, it's like He draws our minds to this fact and saying, I've given you so much good and so much guidance, and what will make you think, what will make you reflect? The truth here or the falsehoods that everyone else spews? Turning people away from God, turning people away from His messengers. How many person is there out there that actually dislikes Allah and His messenger only because they've heard a false narrative elsewhere? So then Allah says, ألم تر كيف ضرب الله مثلا كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. Do you not see how Allah compares a good word to a good tree? Its root firm and its branches reach the sky. This is beautiful. So the word mathal is, as we looked before, a strange story, but it puts something rational into the form of some physical, so you can grasp it and understand it yourself. It's an excellent teaching and reminding tool. And so he says that Alam Tara, have you not seen how Allah gives this mathal, how Allah tells us about Iman and what's good for us and how disbelief is bad for us, right? And it's just really significant. So what is this kalima tayyiba? So there are a number of positions. Some say it's the statement La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some say it's anything that's true versus anything that's false. Others say it's referring to the Quran. I like this one. So the one that is true and everything also fits, because it also fits the Quran. And the first one of Iman also fits, but the strongest one here is the Quran, because Allah is saying that look how many points of guidance and how often and in how many ways Allah has been giving this to humanity. What are they doing? Like, what are they doing? You don't need to know Arabic to understand the guidance of the Quran. You don't need to know, classical Arabic grammar or rhetoric. You don't need to have read the mu'allaqat or, the mufaddaliyat or any of these poetry collections. You just need to be able to recognize the truth. And it's there clear for everyone. And so he says, haven't they thought about this, right? It's something of wonder. So he said, kalima, so the word on its own can mean a single word or it can mean a sentence. So here in this situation, it's Sayyid Tantawi says that it means La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And that also works, right? And the opposite is the kalima khabitha, which is coming in the coming verses. And so it's tayyiba, pure. But here what's actually implied and meant with pure, as Ibn Ashur says, it means beneficial. It's pure, so it benefits. As opposed to something that's filthy, it will not benefit you, right? And purity and filth are used, great metaphors to express the validity and invalidity of something. Something that's filthy, you don't want to go near it. Would you drink a cup of vomit? Someone just casually vomits in front of you, and here, let me just enhance your clothing by putting it all over you. No, people would turn away from that. And here the belief of Tawheed, believing in one God who's created you, who's given you everything, keeps you alive, keeps giving you all these blessings, that He deserves worship and thanks. What are you going to do about that? You're just going to turn away and just think, I've got my tech, I've got my social circle, I have my bottle of wine, I don't need all this. Or are you going to be a grateful being, right? And so he said, so yeah, in one hadith, before I go to the meaning deeper, the Prophet said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, after quoting this, he said that it's the palm tree. It's referring to the palm tree. Like the metaphor that's being used is referring to a palm tree, and because the roots are grounded and the branches are up in the sky. And so he says that the roots, asluha thabitun wa far'uha fi sama, its roots are firm. So when a tree's roots are firm, like they go down and there's many branches and they take root in the ground, they're firm. So it's hard to push the tree over, because you're not just pushing the tree, you're pushing all the roots that have gone into the ground, and they're holding onto the soil and the ground around them to give extra stability and poise, to this tree. And if you're trying to push it over, you're not just fighting the tree, it's all the root system that you might even be stood over, right? So and so for asluha thabitun, its base is supremely secure, or far'uha fi sama, and its branches are up in the sky. So talking about a really high tree, tall tree with beautiful branches bearing fruit. The fruit pulls them down. It looks beautiful. It's beneficial. It's edible. It brings in money. It brings in, a food source. It's something you can harvest regularly. There's so many benefits that come from such a tree. So just like that. So just like he's described a tree, which is good, wholesome, well nourished, and it can do that to others. This tree, he's compared it to the truth of the Quran, or the truth of the statement La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all of the benefits that these statements bring, or the Quran brings. It's all there, and it's true. It's good to look at. It's all beneficial. Don't turn away from it. That's what he's saying, right? And comparing a tree with beautiful flowers and fruits, and it just looks nice to be around this tree, is like iman, or having a direct understanding of the Quran and accepting the guidance Allah gives through it, subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You enjoy looking up at it, you enjoy admiring its beauty. That's what the beautiful word is like. And so there are a couple of positions, as I said, regarding that, but we'll continue this discussion by talking about the kalima khabitha, the filthy statement, and the shajara khabitha, the filthy bird, next time, inshallah ta'ala. Allah bless you all, and we'll continue, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.